Okay, I'm seeing where you're all from in the chat, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. My name is Helen Silver, and I'm part of this year's SEFLIN Regional Conference Planning Committee. Thank you for attending this year's conference, LED-led SEFLIN, Libraries Exploring Design. Before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to take a second to remind everyone that all of today's breakout sessions are being recorded, and links to the recordings will be made available next week. If you're at this stage accidentally, please refer to the agenda on the LibGuide for the links to the other stages. We have included the link to the LibGuide in the chat box. If you receive a meeting at capacity notice, we apologize. I don't think we are. Please try a different session instead and be on the lookout for the recordings next week. Also, don't forget to check your conference bingo cards to play along and win fun prizes. When you get a bingo, send a picture, screenshot, along with your name and contact information to training@seflin.org. And as a reminder, the poster presentations are also live. You can view the posters at the link on the screen and in the chat box. And finally, please keep your microphones and cameras off during the presentations. There will be time afterwards for questions. You can use the chat box or your microphone to ask questions after. It's now my pleasure to welcome Amy on to discuss observational website UX testing. It's fun, it's eye-opening, it's for you. Amy on works in the Instructional Services Department at the Boca Raton Public Library. She's my coworker. She previously worked at the Wimberley Library at FAU and taught high school history. She teaches information and tech literacy classes for the Boca Library. She also serves as the discussion group leader for the Security and Privacy Discussion Forum for the SEFLIN SMP Learning Cluster and is a member of the FLA Marketing and Membership Committees. Her presentation today is about her website UX project for the Boca Raton Library website workgroup. So I will turn it over to Amy.
Okay, so sorry everyone. I've not had so many technical problems before. So here's where I really wanted to start. We did this project and I was the moderator. I asked the questions. My supervisor was the note taker, and as soon as the patron walked out the door, she turned to me and said, I could do this all day. It was really eye-opening, really exciting, really motivating for us. And really, we didn't want this project to end. So here's in a nutshell what this was that we were doing. It's live one-on-one sessions with a patron. The only requirements really are a room and a quiet room, a computer so that you can show them your website, a moderator like me, a participant, a patron, and a note taker is really amazing. You give them tasks to perform on the computer in front of them using your website. They follow something called a Think Aloud protocol. You gather the info that they share with you while they do that. I'm going to talk more about what that means. And then you use it to improve your website or to make changes in your website. So we found out that sometimes patrons notice things that we didn't notice or that we work around. So these are some quotes from some patrons. On the left, you can see a screenshot of close-up of our catalog when you're in our catalog, and you can see the logo up there. What happened was patrons expected that to take them back to the home page as they were navigating through the tasks we gave them. It didn't. It took you to the beginning of the catalog. So you can see the 18 to 34-year-olds in parentheses there. That's the age range of the first patron. They said, I can't get back to the home page. I'll Google it. They completely abandoned our page, our website, and went to Google to navigate our website. The parent-aged person, 34 to 54, flat out said, I don't think it's user-friendly. The navigation just isn't good. And then the 55-plus patron just quit, just said, I don't know how to get back to the homepage, and quit. So these are the kinds of things you see we learned from patrons. We also found them doing things that we didn't expect. So going into this, we thought that our search bar, this is a close-up of our homepage, and you can see the search bar that would take you to the catalog. It says find books, movies, music, and more, and then has a find it button to click. We expected patrons might have trouble finding it. They did a bit, but mostly we were surprised that they thought of it as a Google search or a federated search. They tried to click on it when we asked them to find things on our website, like find our calendar. And one patron said, well, I did that, but it didn't give me very much information. No, the catalog didn't give you any information on the calendar. And then the teen tried searching when we asked if you could find new items, a list of new items in our library. We put a lot of effort into those lists. He tried searching the catalog to do that. So we anticipated some things and learned others. We all know the word databases is jargon. And so we have a Explore tab, a digital library tab that takes you to research online. We expected patrons might not recognize terms like database, but what we learned was they didn't even think of the library as a place to search for things like that at all. For example, the parent-age person, the 34 to 54-year-old said, I wouldn't have thought to look for the research topics at the library at all. And then the 255 plus people that I've quoted here, one said, they were really excited when they found out that we do these things. They just didn't know it. I think you should tell people, they said. And somebody said, we should have a class on it. Spoiler alert, we do. It's called the digital library class. And the patron replied, that doesn't mean anything to me. So can you see the kinds of, I'm frustrated that I can't see the chat to see what people might be popping in with, but you can see these are the kinds of things that we learned from patrons about how they were using the site, not exactly how we anticipated they might be using it at all. I'm still trying to see if I can open up the chat, but the last thing that I want to share with you from the quotes from them is just flat out website avoidance. The teen, do you think be a digital native, basically said, yeah, come into the library to use the computers, but I don't do it from home. The sort of busy parent in this scenario said, I get stuck, I can't find things, I just call the library. I don't have patience for this. And then our 55 plus patron that I've quoted here uses the website frequently, except not really the website. They use the catalog and have that bookmarked on their computer. So they literally bypass every bit of info that we put on our website about our events and things we want them to know. So we learned we weren't really making effective use of our website in many ways. Some people are flat out avoiding it. So let's talk about what observational UX testing really is, and why I think it's so accessible. So I'm going to run through some of the steps, and then, oops, oh Lord, oh there we go. I apologize. I'm going to run through these steps. Use real tasks, recruit real users, observe and record user behavior, and using that think aloud commentary that I mentioned, analyze the data, and then repeat the data, repeat the study. So what do I mean by use real tasks? This is a close-up of our website. You can now see the search bar in the top right. We anticipated, like I said, that might be not visible to people. But in fact, it was more visible than we anticipated. So that's a good reminder that this needs to be about what you actually find, about usability, not about your opinion. So the general advice to do this is to think of scenarios. You can think of specific users like teens or parents or seniors, or you can think of scenarios of just generic use of your site to develop the questions. So real tasks like finding a book, finding the catalog, finding a list of new items. And the second thing that is on that list is to use real users. So UX testing is very user-centered. We think we know how our patrons use our website because we work with them all day long to talk to them, teach them, show them how to do things, and we see the errors they make. But the truth is we don't really know how they approach things, and this observational testing can help you with that. So what I've got on this graph here is the number of test users going from 0 to 3 to 6 at the bottom, and the % of problems found. So if you're testing, can people find and use our search box for our catalog? the argument is that between 5 to 10 users will get you 85% of the problems with that specific part of your website. So that's why the advice is you can stick with 5 to 10 users and catch most of the problems. So that makes it accessible, right? Because you don't need to have so many and you can catch most of the problems. Now, as far as observing and recording, this is really where the biggest chunk of learning for all of you guys goes. I don't know if we're like Steve Irwin here or like his son, but this method is described as testing or observation in the wild, meaning we're like anthropologists trying to observe real users. It's an experiment, but it's trying to replicate what real users do. So that's the observation in the wild part. Recording could mean audio, video, or just taking notes. I think the video and audio requires more equipment and permissions from patrons, etc. So what are you observing? What are you recording and taking notes about? Two things. One is the quantitative. Did they do the task? Could they complete it? Yes or no? What percentage? Or qualitative. Notes about their thinking, about what they were doing, about the sticking points. And this is where the Think Aloud commentary comes in. So in a couple of seconds, I'm going to ask you to try this out. But basically, thinking aloud means that the patron, the tester, speaks out loud, describing what they're doing and thinking while they're completing the task. So in the actual testing session, I described this, defined this, and then offered to demonstrate. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So be thinking about what I'm saying, because I'm going to ask you to think about your website and how you might demonstrate it. So the demonstration should be something you're not testing on. I didn't give a demonstration of our search box and how that works. I gave a demonstration, an example of finding our social media on the website. So it would sound like this when you're listening to the patron. They would say, okay, I'm trying to find your social media posts on your website. So I'm looking, I see there's an African American History Month. I see you can use it. There's a digital library. Oh, I see a Facebook link right there. If I click that, maybe I will get to Facebook. And they click it and they do. So it's a simple just talking out loud while they're doing the thing. So you can try it. I'm guessing you know your website well enough to do a task in your head. So Helen, maybe you can help me out here with whatever people might post. But if you assume, I'm assuming that you're at your library's homepage, if you can picture that in your head, and then you can speak out loud, literally speak out loud, or you can narrate for yourself in your head. But if I asked you, does your library own an electronic copy of the book Flat Broke with Two Goats? What would be the steps? You know, can you imagine yourself going through the, can you imagine yourself going through the steps and talk to yourself about what that might be? So give it a try. I'm going to sort of wait, give it a second, and then I want to demo for you something that actually happened with our patrons. So what would it be in your head? Can you find the book Flat Broke with Two Goats? Helen, are you trying it? Can you picture our website? Think out loud in your head.
Say that again, because I was messaging.
You're distracted, yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Think out loud in your head, or because you're on not on mute. Can you walk through the steps in your head? If somebody said, do we have the book, what is it called? Flat Broke with Two Goats. So picture in your head, okay, I'd go here. Picture that you were thinking aloud, right?
Okay.
You can do it. So then I'm going to demo what patrons actually did when I asked a question like that. And then we, in the chat, I'd like to see if you said, oh yeah, that was just like what I imagined, or it's not. So if I said that to a patron, they might say, right, okay, I need to find that book, and I'm looking around, okay, I see the search box, I'm going to type that title in there. And then this is what happens. I'm not here, they type the title, and then they see this and they go, oh, wait, what, where am I? let me try that again. I don't know where I landed. I must have clicked the wrong thing. Let me click on the logo to go back to the home page. They clicked on the logo. It didn't go back to the home page. It would now. I say, okay, I'm really confused. Let me scroll and see. I don't know where I am. What is this page? I don't see any books here. And then they land here and they say, I don't know. I mean, I see 3 of them. What does that mean? I don't know why there's 3. Okay, I guess you have it. So that's what it sounded like from our end when we were doing the test. Is that what you did in your head? Right, Helen? I don't
No.
think that's what you did in your head. I think
No.
in your head it went way smoother.
Yes.
Yes. So how did, was that what it would have sounded like to you guys in your head? Was it smoother or was it confusing like that? Because that's what we found with our patrons, lots of confusion like that. So let me get, that's awesome. Thank you, Megan. Wait, let's see. Not in my head because I know their struggle. Yeah. So,
You're able to see the chat, Amy?
yeah,
Okay,
now
good.
I can see it. I
Okay,
found a way to do it. Okay.
Right.
So there are some advantages and disadvantages to this method. Advantages are that it's inexpensive. You don't need any special equipment. It's easy to learn if you're interested in it. You get to really see the user's thinking. And if you can incorporate more staff in doing the note-taking or observing, then especially the people in charge of the website get to see what's happening and how this is playing out for them. Disadvantages, some people find it difficult to do and say while they're doing it. We didn't find that. We found patrons are great at it. The other disadvantage is that it doesn't tell you everything. You still need to do things like website analytics, things like maybe what's on the screen if you have access to it, where you can see what where patrons' eyes are moving on a screen, or a heat map of how long they're sitting on a spot. Website polls, surveys of your patrons. So it's not everything, but it is really pretty awesome and fun. So step 4 is to analyze the data that you collect. And I said there's 2 kinds of data. You can collect just quantitative on whether they did the task or not, or qualitative. This is from, there's lots of folks who do guerrilla usability testing, meaning they're quick in and out. They pop into a shop and say to 5 people, can I have a few minutes of your time? And they ask them to try their website or try a thing. And this is what they offered as a way to analyze the data. So they gave 8 tasks. You can see the columns across the top. They had 5 testers you can see in the rows. When a tester could do the task fairly easily, they gave it a 3 and colored it green. If they had trouble, they colored it yellow and gave it a 2. And if it was really hard, really many problems, they coded it a 1 and red. So when you do that, you can see right away that task number 6 had big problems, that, that there were many people had problems with task 1 and couldn't do it. So that tells you right away that you need to direct your energy into task 1. So this thing keeps popping to the wrong spot. Last step is to repeat. Here's the idea. You're down on a lower platform and you test quickly with 5 to 10 people. You find a few fixes that are needed and you make fixes to your website. You spiral up, and then maybe a few months later you do it again, and again spiral up. So you keep getting better and better as you go. I found that there's some statistics on this. Some people do this quarterly. About 30% of people who do this kind of testing do it quarterly, 20% do it monthly, and 22% do it bi-monthly. So, so there's lots of people who are doing this, and I think it's a great program, great plan that you can do. So I want to stop for a minute. I can see the chat. Does anyone have questions about those 5 steps? I'm going to talk about what we did and how we did it for each of those steps, but do you have questions about just the 5 steps in general? So I think I'm seeing the chat, and I think I'm not seeing anything pop up, but I will keep looking. So someone said that they they tried doing that think aloud in their head, and they knew the patron's struggle. Did anyone else try it? Have you tried something like this before? I don't think we really realized the extent of the ways that patrons could go wrong. How many participants do you normally use? They recommend, remember when I talked about users, I don't want to pop back to that slide, but you can later. 5 to 10 gets you 85% of the problems for the thing you're testing on. So if you're testing, does our search box work, then 5 to 10 people should get you 85% of the problems with that part of your website. So that makes it really accessible and really interesting. You could be targeting 5 to 10 people of a certain age. Yes, if it's not in the resources list at the end, I should have said that I have a resources list at the end. If it's not there, you can find it. But guerrilla usability testing is like a category. You can just Google guerrilla website testing, and you'll find lots, not one organization, it's lots and lots of people who are using this. So I see, yeah, we spend so much time on our own website. It's like editing. You can't see the mistakes anymore. Yeah, the easiest route. Sometimes the easiest route is very convoluted because we don't get to make a website as great as Amazon, right? We don't spend the money on it. So, oh, someone's done guerrilla testing before? Very interesting. Yeah, they lose, and we saw some of our people just go to Google to navigate our own website. So it is really sort of fascinating how what we saw and what we learned. So let's move on to what we actually did. So back to step 1, use real tasks. So I put a picture of a theater because I think it's helpful to think of it like scripts in theater, that you can imagine a specific person and how they might want to use the website. A child or a teen or a parent would be different from each other, and different again from somebody who has accessibility issues or someone who's senior. Yes, you can think of personas and then think of specific scenes that the persona might try to accomplish, or scenarios that they might try to accomplish on your website. So these are the 6 that we focused on. We didn't go to persons. We said, well, we're just starting this. We want to think about the top things that we would hope people can do on our website. So can they find items in our catalog? Can they find events? Today's events, next week's events. We put a lot of effort into new lists, lists of new things, lists of award-winning books, things like that. Are they even finding our lists? Basics like, can they find the hours? Do they know about ebooks? And do they know how to research topics? And I already kind of established that they really don't know how to research topics. So by focusing on these, you make it manageable. We didn't try to do all the things on our website. There are lots of other things that in doing this testing, we saw about our website, but we didn't intend to do them. And so research also shows that about 20% of your pages of your website get 80% of your traffic. So we approach this with, these are the 20% that we would hope gets most of the traffic, and is it working? So that's how we looked at the scenarios. So again, you can come back and look at this later. My goal is not that we're going to read all of this right now, but these are the questions that we asked. So we turned, can they find a book, into a question. Does the library own the book, the index card? And then you can read through each of the questions. So you saw that by asking if they own a book, they get in the catalog, and then asking if they can find events, they have to navigate back to the home page or some part of the page to find the calendar, because you won't find that in the catalog, obviously. I want to draw your attention to question number 7. We asked, if you wanted to research a health issue, look up an appliance in Consumer Reports, or even get help with a business question from the web page, how would you do that? So that was our attempt to see if they could find our databases. And actually they could with that prompt. I want to ask you guys, if you were thinking about a scenario of a teen and you wanted to see if teens can find databases, that's your scenario, what would the question look like? Because obviously this question wouldn't work for teens. they're unlikely to research a health issue or look up an appliance in Consumer Reports. So can you think of ways, thinking of your website, what resources you have for teens, which won't be the same as ours, can you think of a way you'd rephrase or write a question that was designed to address the scenario of our teens using our database type resources? So can anyone think or pop in the chat how you might rephrase that or change that, or what would be included, what would be important to you about that? Alexa, tell me about climate change books. Yeah, so great, you guys have Alexa, so you can ask them if they know how to use that. So, you know, you could do that. You could say, if you wanted to research a topic like climate change, how would you find that on our website? I kept using the phrase, how would you find that on our website, so that I would direct them back to you. Let's see, let's type it. So I don't see any takers, but you get the idea that, that we would redo that. And so this is how we reorganized that question. We didn't include teens at first, and when we did, we added in this question, if you wanted to research a topic for school, get tutoring help, etc., how would you do that on the library website? I should also draw your attention to question number 1. We had to change the title of the book from the index card to the Game of Thrones, because a couple of patrons were started looking for an index. They misunderstood the title. So this is why pre-testing can be really important. And we did that with when we recruited real users. So we started with, well, ourselves, and then we moved on to new staff. So we asked new staff if they would run through through this project with us, through the questions. And we did that so that we could see where we were stumbling, where we needed to improve our skills in asking the questions, in working with them, in taking notes. And so we started with new staff, and then we moved on to recruit, I think it was 3 patrons with whom we have a really great relationship. You know, that actual individuals, staff had a relationship with these patrons, knew that they'd be really excited to help the library, and would overlook any rough patches, right? It wouldn't leave them feeling unhappy about the library. They'd be really excited that they helped. So we moved on to some patrons who are great, had a great relationship with us. And then we involved more of the library staff by sending out a call to all library staff. Could they suggest patrons who use the library frequently and might be willing to help us? And then from there, I called them and asked them if they would participate, and made an appointment with them so that they could come in. So that's how we recruited the real users for our project. Does that sound like, does this so far sound doable to you guys? Does it sound interesting? And think about questions that you can ask me about the steps as we move on. So yes, doable, great. So observe and record. I meant to say on that very first slide that PowerPoint made the title slide for me. I don't know how it knew that observational website UX testing is a bit like a cat peeping at you from the corner, but it picked that. And so I repeated that here because it, you know, can feel awkward all around that you're observing and recording. And so it's important that you explain and are careful about explaining that to your patrons. So what we did was we had a moderator and a note taker for each session with the patron. The moderator's role is, yeah, once COVID has calmed down, there is a way, people do this. I'm interrupting myself, sorry. Stephen asked about, is this possible to be done online? It is possible to be done online. I feel like a lot of our patrons would struggle with what you need to do that online. So, so it's not something we've looked into right now, but there is a version of this that's online and not in person. So the moderator's job is to ask questions and then wait. And sometimes that's really difficult. The moderator needs to remind patrons, testers to speak out loud. In the beginning, I had to remind some people once or twice, but they were great. You also, as a moderator, have to be prepared to step in before the patron, the tester, gets very frustrated, and you have to decide when that's enough on that task, right? So that's a fine line, and I got some experience with that by testing with our staff, by testing with some of those patrons that were really friendly and supportive of the library. So you have to figure out that line for yourself. Also, really, I can't emphasize enough, and I'm going to come back to it, the really key thing that you have to do is make sure that the testers, the patrons, realize that this is about the website, not about them. That even though I said to people, we're testing the website, it's still really easy for people to think that it's a test of themselves and their inadequacies. So you have to be very clear multiple times that your goal is to have them stumble, to have them find spots that are painful and difficult to move through, because you need to fix them. And so it's not for, you just don't want to leave them feeling like they're the ones being tested. Also, your own bias can creep in. So I said we were thinking that a big focus would be that the search bar was difficult to find. So we needed to make sure we weren't saying, can you find the search bar? Is it hard to find? We can't ask leading questions like that. We needed to just stick with the scenarios, stick with the tasks, and see what patrons did with them. So the note taker has maybe a more challenging role because they have to just take notes and not jump in. It can be very tempting to jump in and say, did you look at the top? Or to try to signal to the moderator that you think it's gone on too long or not gone on long enough. So it's really important that you let the moderator be the moderator so that the patron doesn't get confused. Also, the note taker has to capture what's happening, not the fix. Right, so right away your mind wants to go to, yeah, Jolene just posted because she was a note taker for me. It's very tempting to jump in. The fix to that is to debrief and talk about at spots where the moderator, me, should have waited longer or stopped it sooner so that I could build my skills. And you know, we didn't find it emotionally draining. It was really, really exciting and empowering. It's like when you're in class and the teacher just gives you a B and doesn't tell you, at least for me, I want to know why. And so it was like we were getting great feedback, and it wasn't, for me, it was really invigorating. I loved it. And I like I said, I really struggled to try to find ways to communicate that here today. And it was really exciting. So don't try to capture solutions during the testing, capture what's happening, what they're saying and doing. We thought that we would capture more of the quantitative, like how many clicks it took somebody, but we weren't able to do that. Our notes, I'll show you our notes in a minute. We were not able to capture that. So the testing session itself, this is what that looked like for us. We welcomed and greeted the people, and I'll show you our script for that. We explained the Think Aloud protocol. I already mentioned that we talked about how we defined that for them, and we modeled it for them. We asked some background questions, which I'll show you, then the UX questions, and then we had a closing. So that's what the actual testing session looked like. Does anyone have questions so far about this, or what our testing session looked like for us? Can you picture the day, you know, the patron walks in at an appointed time. It was a conference room. We just sat at a table, note taker on one side, moderator on the other, and worked through the questions. We did this, that's a great question. So a couple of great questions. So we did 17 patrons, about 20 minutes with each one at appointment times. So we would get a lead that somebody in youth services recommended this particular person, patron, and I would get their contact info, I'd call them, I would invite them, see if they had some times that I was available, they were available. And then once, because scheduling so many people is difficult, once I had an appointment with them, then I worked around with staff, other staff, to see who could be a note taker at that time, who was available. That kept it simple for me, not trying to schedule 3 people at once. And I really didn't want to make the patrons say, oh, let me get back to you. That's not a good time. That's not a good time. I just wanted to work around their schedule. Stephen asked, how do I encourage customers to attend? Literally everyone was excited. Everyone wanted to do it. They loved that we were asking them, that we wanted to hear what they had to say, and really excited to do it. So some people, like the parents, the ones with young kids, pizza. Yeah, we didn't have a budget for pizza or gift cards. People do that. We sometimes, I met with them in a conference room. A couple times I made appointments when parents were already going to be in the library while an older child was in a program, and the younger kids were playing in the youth services area, and we just met at a table at the youth services area. It didn't take very long. You know, the younger they were, the faster it was. It was really generally speaking, older patrons spent a long time reading everything on the website to try to solve the problem, and younger ones looked at it. If they couldn't figure it out, they were done. They moved on. They didn't have patience to keep trying. This was the greetings and welcome script. I want to draw your attention to the highlighted area. Again, I'm not expecting you to read this right now, but again, I was really clear with them when I made the appointment, at the start of the meeting, during the session, if they started saying anything about how they you know, apologizing they couldn't do something, I reminded them again, this is exciting for us. This is exactly what we wanted to happen. We wanted to make sure that we could find problem spots like this. I didn't read the script, but I did write it out so that I had a clear sense of the points. And also I wasn't sure if I'd be the only moderator. So I wanted to have consistency and pass it on to other staff if other people were moderators. This was basically my script, and I often did come close to reading this to describe for them what the Think Aloud meant, because I thought that was really important that I was consistent. Again, you can come back and read this. This isn't intended for you to have to read through right now, but I wanted you to have it. This is what our notes sheet looked like. We asked people their age, or sometimes it was very clear, you know, where they fell into the age category. We asked them how familiar they are with the internet, how often they come to the library, and how familiar they are with the library website, how often they used it. Oftentimes people use, you know, very familiar, slightly familiar. We didn't do that. We just asked people, and it was more natural. We also included gender, just because people include gender on things. We didn't ask anyone that, and it didn't turn out to be relevant to any of what I found. So I think it was really important that we included staff up in the top right. So the name of the patron, for teens, we just recorded, you know, teen there and put some initials. And then the staff who was taking the notes. So if I had to, I could go back to the right person to tell them I couldn't read their notes or whatever I needed from them. So that was our notes. And then at the bottom, there's lots of white space and more paper for taking notes. And then we had a closing script, again, for you to look at later. It was really important to let people know how important this was to us and how much we valued it. So I'm back to that Gorilla template because I want to remind you, this is a really super simple way that you could track things. We did not do that. This is what ours looked like. So I had the date, the age, the gender, but that middle column that has lots of text, that was question number 1, find a book. So this spreadsheet, I entered these in basically after each session. There were a total of 17 participants, so it didn't take very long each time, and better to do it when it's fresh. And then we could scroll through this column, find a book, and read what the notes were for each person so we could see the trends and the themes. And so that's how we did that. And that made sense for us. And then I'll show you, for example, question 1, this was kind of our summary of question 1. One person never found, that was, can you find this item? And one person never found the search box. Just, nope, not there, I give up. 16 found it, but only 4 found it right away, used it without any trouble. So in that green, yellow, red gorilla thing, 4 people would have gotten green. 8 of those 16 who found it had trouble using it. So they probably would have gotten a 2. And then the 3 of those people had trouble just finding it. when they found it, some of them had trouble using it, but yeah, so you can see that the search box needs some work, and that's on our to-do list. The second question, I'm not going to go through every question, just wanted to give you a sense of each of them. We asked them if they could find events at the library today. We have that in two places. We have, if you scroll down on our homepage, you can see today's events, and then we have a calendar. And we were really hoping and expecting people were clicking on the calendar link that's right below the halfway mark. So you have to scroll a little on the main page to see that. And that's what we were hoping people were using. But we found 5 people never found events at all out of 17. None of them used the banner. We have the big banner with events, and if you click on that, it would take you to the calendar. None of them did that. None of them found the calendar button that was a slight scroll down. They found it in these 4 different places. And some of them found it in such a way they could never find it that way again. It was, they went through 5, 6 different pages and then suddenly saw something that they realized there was a calendar. So then we learned that we need to shift how we put emphasis on the calendar on our website. And then step 5 is test, analyze, fix, and then repeat, right? And we did not repeat. So we did this last year. We are still making slight fixes as things come up. But we also are hoping to add some new tools to our catalog, which would mean that some of the testing we did wouldn't really apply anymore. So we decided to hold off before we do that. And it's a good time for me to say that part of this testing could be just all year long to see things that need fixing. But part of this kind of testing could be if you do something new, if you add a new service, if you change a part of your website, you can go in and do testing, ask these questions on the old one, ask it on the new version you hope to launch, so that you can see. That is a typical way that this might be used as well. So that is the 5 steps and how we did them. I'm wondering if anyone has questions at this point. I don't know if 45 is when I was supposed to stop, but I'm wondering if anyone has questions. I just want to use this page to point out, I'll keep an eye on the chat if you have questions. On this page, I wanted to point out we did change some of our tabs. We did change our logo so that when you're in the catalog and click on logo, it takes you back to this homepage. We've changed this tab and we'll be soon adding the calendar here when we're back to post-COVID and have more events actually on our calendar. So we've used it to make some changes. We still think that this might be crowded and want to change that, but that may come naturally as we move through some updates that we're hoping to do. So that's kind of where we are. I think we made some other changes to some of the contents of these tabs so that the labels were clear. Again, those were not things that we tested on, but they came through in the testing. So that's pretty much where I wind up. It really was so much fun. It was so eye-opening, and I really think that it is pretty simple and straightforward, and something, you know, we didn't have training necessarily in this. We taught ourselves. So I really encourage everyone to try it. Normally I try to do a thing at the end where I say, what's the one thing you're gonna do, but you're either gonna do this or not, and I hope you get a chance to do it. This is the resources that I gave you. I'm trying to see if I included the Gorilla. I did not. Oh no, I did. There's the Gorilla testing. The second to last bullet point. And the very last bullet point is for academic libraries. We're walking through the same process very similarly. So thank you very much for attending. Oh, Stephen's excited to try it. Yeah, it's awesome. And let's see. Oh, interesting. They highlight, I'm reading Barbara's comment. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Helen. And we're open to reaching out to us via email if you like.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Lunch will be starting soon, and there will be some activities during lunch. So we'll see you at the next session. Well, that's BYOF.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.